I think that a long while ago from my conservative days, I must have signed up for Blaze TV newsletter or something, some kind of conservative newsletter crap. And basically, I randomly got an email today that was like a mass email thing, and it had a video attached talking about how Candace Owens immediately shuts up an obnoxious white liberal who tries talking over her. And we have a guy here who looks honestly more like an obnoxious white liberal than I do, even though I am the king obnoxious liberal. He even looks more so than me. I don't know how he did this. But yeah, this guy, I guess, is going to explain to us how Candace Owens silences a white liberal or something.
Jaywalk Media, this is Matt Miller, and watch what Candace Owens does when this white liberal tries to confront her and tell her that black Americans are still being systemically oppressed in America.
Was there ever a point in history where white privilege did exist?
Yeah, I suppose when we lived in a country where if you were black, you were not allowed to go into certain places.
When did it end?
When it stopped being systemic, when there stopped being laws in place that stopped me as a black person doing what you are able to do as a white man.
Candace Owens, as you can see, has a ridiculously high bar for what it means to have white privilege. White privilege does not mean that white people never experience difficulties, that white people are never poor, that white people never get fired or never don't get a job, that white people never struggle, that being white means you just have the easy good life, you're living in vacation 24/7. No, that's not what white privilege means. All that white privilege means is that if you are a white person here in America, you are unlikely to experience difficulties as a result of or due to the fact that you are white. So if the white person gets fired from their job, odds are it has nothing to do with you being white. But black people do still face unique struggles to this day due to the fact that they're black, due to the fact that people have a bias and racism against black people. And you're right, Holly. Exactly. Especially black women. Black women struggle the most. Redlining was a thing. Redlining was done away with as far as the legal aspect of it. It's no longer on the books. However, the impact of redlining is still here. It still exists. That's systemic racism.
If you ask me whether or not I believe in economic privilege, I would tell you yes. If you ask me whether or not I think that somebody born into a family of billionaires be afforded more privileges in life than somebody that is born in the projects of Chicago, I would say yes, because economic privilege in this country does exist. But there is no law.
Oh, interesting. So Candace Owens acknowledges economic privilege as being a thing. So Candace, what do you do when there's a massive economic gap between ethnicities? White people, on average, have more economic abilities and economic assets in this country. Redlining kept people of color from being able to really invest in this country, from being able to build up home equity lines, which prevented them from sending their children to college, from taking out loans. It damaged their economic ability significantly. So Candace acknowledges economic privilege. We know that there was economic discrimination against black people in the past. There still is an economic gap between white and black people currently. So doesn't that therefore follow that there's a degree of white privilege? And if a lot of the reason as to why black people struggle more so when it comes to accumulating wealth because of racist policies of the past, then it sounds like white privilege.
Law in place that is stopping a person because of the color of their skin from gaining that economic privilege, which is why I do not believe that white privilege.
Okay, what if you're somebody with a black sounding name and you go out to apply for a job? We already know that black sounding names are far more likely to be rejected during the interview process as opposed to regular American white sounding names, such as, Jake if somebody has a black sounding name, an ethnic sounding name, and they want to go get a job so that they can also have the same economic advantages as white people, their chances are harmed greatly because they have an ethnic sounding name, Candace.
Based upon the color of your skin exists. If you're asking me, do I think the black community has been crippled economically, the answer would be yes. It has been crippled economically by Democrat policies. You just heard me.
Wait, so she's acknowledging that the black community has been crippled economically, but now she's trying to say, but it's by the Democrats. Newsflash, doesn't matter if it's the Democrats or the Republicans, if the fucking black community, as Candace puts it, has been economically disadvantaged in the past, and we're still dealing with economic disadvantages within those communities now, nobody gives a single fuck if it was from the Democrats or not. The argument isn't that Republicans did systemic racism. The argument is that systemic racism exists. Candace Owens is literally saying, yeah, systemic racism is real, but it's the Democrats. Okay. Why are you moving the goalpost?
You just heard
Who
me
cares
say that
who
in
does
there.
it?
I
Democrats
care,
are
because that
Americans.
tells you-
Democrats are in America,
because
so
that
therefore
tells
you just admitted
that tells you-
that there has been disadvantages
it
by
is not
two
race.
black
It
people
is not-
by Democrats
it
who
is
are
not
American.
based
You
off
just
of
admitted it.
It is not based off. You asked me if white privilege exists. The answer is white privilege. Because you're born white, that means you're going to not have this or that. It does not exist. No. This is what I love about white liberals.
What in the hell did Candace just blabber on and say, hold on.
Based off, it is not,
Democrats who
it
are
is not
American.
based
You
off
just
of
admitted
the.
it.
It is not based off. You asked me if white privilege exists. The answer is white privilege. Because you're born white, that means you're going to not have this or that. It does not exist. No. This is what I love about white liberals, right? Like, they know
I'm not a
it's so
liberal.
important
You're a
for
Marxist.
them to sell us
No,
our
I'm not.
oppression that they'll come up and tell us we're a disgrace. Just
Do
say,
you speak
just
for all
say
black
it, just
people?
say it, just say it.
Can you speak for
well,
all
why
black
don't you
people?
stop speaking for black people? That would be
not.
great, okay?
I'm not.
Why don't you let
speaking on white
him who
Another conservative acting out of identity politics. To him, blacks are too dumb to speak for themselves. No, to people like Candace Owens that deny systemic racism, they believe that black people are too stupid to quote unquote pull themselves up by the bootstraps and just go and get better and go and just find opportunities.
who's shaking his head and rolling your eyes speak about him, his experience as a black
We
man.
can have a conversation
No,
later.
no, because you're sitting here
We're
yelling
talking
at
about
me,
white
telling me,
privilege.
and I'm telling you the answer. Economic privilege exists. You're saying why does
Economic
it disproportionately affect blacks? Because we're disproportionately voting for Democrats, and it's stupid.
So Candace
This is hilarious. It's framed as though Candace Owens is like shutting up the obnoxious liberal, when in reality, Candace Owens is fucking pissed off because she just got called out. Economic privilege exists. Yeah, there is even economic disadvantages for black people compared to white people. However, it's because the Democrats. So therefore, systemic racism isn't real? Dude, Candace Owens didn't shut up an obnoxious white liberal. Candace Owens got triggered as fuck by a funny-ass, bold white liberal.
So Candace did a tremendous job shutting down this smug white liberal. Honestly, these people are the worst because you know what?
You did not do a tremendous job getting dressed this morning, my friend. Did you fall off the golf cart before you started to make this fucking video? Okay, Tiger Woods over here. Continue, please.
Their whole ideology comes from is they need racism to be true. They need racism to be present in modern American society. And they need it to be a really, really big problem because it's the key to them maintaining power and maintaining their authority over the black community. White liberals and white Democrats would not nearly have as much sway and influence in minority communities if the myth of systemic racism went away.
Do some people use it for exploitative reasons? Potentially, possibly. But at the end of the day, what does systemic racism really mean? It simply means that there are systems, social systems, structures, institutions, systems at play that disproportionately negatively affect black people. It's really not that difficult to comprehend. Because there were racist policies in the past that explicitly targeted black people, and now to this day we still see disproportionate poverty and struggles within the black community, that demonstrates that although these policies have been done away with, the impacts of those policies are still here.
If they admitted that things are actually better now and basically equal in terms of the law and in terms of American institutions when it comes to race, and that we've dealt largely with, the Jim Crow South and civil rights issues.
Yeah, again, these people think systemic racism means like black people getting lynched and then the police department being like, oh, it's okay, they were black, LOL. No. Here's some examples of systemic racism. Black people are disproportionately given the death sentence as opposed to white people who commit similar crimes. Why is this? Well, there's multiple reasons why. We just saw Candace Owens admit that economic privilege is a thing. Well, if you're poor, you probably won't be able to afford a very good defense attorney. And if you're poor and you have an appointed defense attorney, they're probably going to have a fuck ton of other cases they're working on. They're probably not going to be able to prioritize you, and they're probably not going to be able to get you any kind of beneficial outcome. So if Candace Owens is even willing to admit that economic privilege is a thing, that trickles down to look like systemic racism, because now you have black people disproportionately living in poverty, disproportionately unable to afford good lawyers, disproportionately given the fucking death sentence. This is a systemic problem.
Civil rights issues, like during the civil rights movement, that was real segregation, that was real racism. We have swung so far in the other direction now where there is no existing systemic racism that exists in society. There might be racism on an individual basis, but I think even that is minuscule. Most Americans, white Americans, are happy to welcome anybody of any race into American society.
Good point, chat. This man has managed to talk so much and not say anything. Most Americans aren't racist. It doesn't matter. There's such a thing as subconscious bias. They've done a study back in 2010. They had a mock court set up. What did they do? They set up in front of this pretend jury pieces of evidence. When the evidence was introduced as this was seen in the suspect's hand, then they were more likely to vote that evidence as being neutral and non-incriminating. When it was presented as here's the evidence that was allegedly in the black suspect's hand, then the mock juror was far more likely to find that evidence incriminating rather than neutral. Even more so, this mock jury was not just made up of white people, it was made up of people of all different colors. And that's because subconscious bias is not a moral flaw, or it's not a character flaw, or something that needs to be condemned as a character flaw. What it is, though, is people internalize subconscious biases. It's a problem, and it absolutely can be unlearned. Someone in chat, I see you say pattern recognition is not racist. It absolutely is if you're claiming pattern recognition because, well, in my limited personal experience, black people were the only ones to rob me, so therefore I'm scared of black people and I'm going to be racist towards black people. No. If you want to support the channel, please consider becoming a member today. Members get early access to videos, access to all the stream VODs, and exclusive access to emotes as well. So if you'd like to support the channel, become a member today.